discussing today's topics from an African American perspective. This is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. We have our Another View Roundtable with us today, but before we get started, two things I want to bring very quickly to your attention. I hope that you will come out this coming Sunday from 4:30 until 6 p.m. at the Decker Half Moon building downtown Norfolk. It is the Community Play-In and Sing-Along, and this is a free community concert. It is Sunday, September the 10th from 4:30 to 6 at the Decker Half Moon Center. And you can bring your instrument and come play along with the symphony, or you can bring your voice and come play along with the chorus, or you can come just listen to the beautiful music. But it's an opportunity for people all over Hampton Roads to come together in celebration, in commemoration, actually, of 9/11, and also to pull communities together in spite of what happened in Charlottesville recently. So it is free. It is open to the public. There is free parking at the at the World Trade Center garage. Free parking there. There will be performances by Teens with a Purpose and Albert Watson, the dance master at Norfolk Academy, and former dancer with Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, will also be performing. And so we will have people from all over. Please come on out. Please plan to enjoy. I'm going to be the MC. Looking forward to it and looking forward to meeting many of you there. So that's going on. That is free this Sunday. Also, September the 16th, the third annual Healthy Summit. This is being done by Fort Norfolk Medical, and this is Dr. Keith Newby's Healthy Summit Conference. He does it each year, and you can RSVP. This is a free event also. There are 4 sessions. We Can Beat Cancer, Living with and Managing Your Diabetes, Taking Care of Elderly Loved Ones, and Tasty Food That Is Good For You. So if you want more information, please go to FortNorfolkMedical.com, and there's information online for that. So 2 great opportunities. They don't cost you anything, and you can learn lots of information from there. So lots to talk about today on our round table. So let's meet our pundits. Roger Chesley is a columnist with the Virginian-Pilot, and you can read his columns every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Hey, Roger. I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Doing well.
Now we can hear you. That's a good
sorry
thing.
about that. I know everybody wants to talk to me, so and hear me too.
Yes, we do. He's an English professor at ODU, an award-winning author and a poet. Mr. Tim Seibles, welcome to the table, Tim.
Thank you, Barbara. It's a pleasure to be here. I've listened to the show for so long, and now I get to be in with my heroes and heroines.
We'll see about that. Thanks very much. We appreciate you being here. Our favorite conservative voice is with us, our community activist, Mr. Bill Thomas.
Hey, that
How you
sounds
doing,
like
Bill?
I'm good. It sounds like an exciting event for this concert down in Norfolk.
Yes.
And it's a good event for a good cause. But if you can't sing or play, don't come. Stay home.
No, don't say that.
If you can't
Don't say
sing
that.
or play,
You know what?
this ain't no political correctness. If you can't sing or play, stay home or sit in the crowd. Nobody want to hear anybody who can't sing or play.
We want everyone to come. Bring your shower voice. Bring
There we
whatever
go.
voice you have.
hell
Absolutely. All are welcome. Absolutely.
Such a hater.
He really is. And joining us this time by phone from the great state of Indiana, journalist, author, and talk show host Wil LaVeist. Hey, Will, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. Always a pleasure to hear your voice, Barbara. I don't know about the others.
Cut him off. He can't show up. Don't need to listen to him.
Well,
you can't show up. I was in Washington. I made it back here. You can't show up.
Oh,
Cut him
my goodness.
off, man. This
Here
ain't
we
free.
go.
Do anything you want to do, how you want to do it. This man is handsomer. He has a better voice. He looks good. And he shook my hand when I walked into the door. So y'all can cut him off.
Now, see, you know what, Will? That's okay. You'll have your revenge when you're here in person next time. So, all right, let's get going, guys. Congressman Bobby Scott spoke at the Hampton Democratic Committee annual Salute to Unions and Community Leaders breakfast. And he had this caution about what's happening in the Trump administration. Let's take a listen, and then you can tell me if you agree or disagree.
Muslim ban. Everybody gets discombobulated to go to the airports. Make sure you do that. Charlottesville, he makes remarks so bizarre, even Republicans attack him for what he said about Charlottesville. Confederate memorials and whether or not Robert Lee's going to stay in the U.S. Capitol. We're getting all organized about that. Whoever thought transgender in the military was an issue? All get all discombobulated about that. Pardons, the sheriff in Arizona, a guy who was profiling people, got caught and convicted in court. And we got to get all organized about that. DACA and build the wall, we're getting all organized. And as he's gotten us all organized in all these things, you'll notice not the first discussion about jobs, not the first discussion about the fact that they're taking away our health care, not the first discussion about education or criminal justice reform or doing the budget. And I suspect he's going to go right before his re-election and say the reason his jobs bill didn't pass is because all the Democrats were interested in were all these other things that didn't have anything to do with jobs. We have to make sure we don't get diverted.
Roger, are we getting diverted by all these other things, or are these other things just as important?
I think we are getting diverted, but, right now we're having some serious issues in and outside the country. I mean, if we are not on top of what's going on in North Korea, its concerns and its push to assert itself, perhaps try to reunify the Korean Peninsula in a way we don't want. If we are not aware of some of the issues going on with the Affordable Care Act, I mean, even though it was not repealed, there are still moves afoot by this administration to weaken it, mostly out of spite more than anything else. The Washington Post has been keeping a running track of everything that this administration has done or tried to do, basically to roll back anything that his predecessor has done. There are some 66 cabinet-level agency decisions that the administration has done, more just to roll back what the Obama administration had done. So if you're looking to see what is the guiding blueprint, it's been to undo anything and to try to destroy anything legacy-wise involving the former president. Mm-hmm. That really is what this administration has been successful of doing, in doing more on executive actions and administrative decisions than anything legislatively.
What do you think, Will?
Well, I love Bobby Scott. He's one of my favorite congressmen. However, the institution that he's a part of is just as culpable of not getting anything done. In fact, in many ways, maybe even more to blame. I think if they had gotten many of the things done, for example, on DACA, comprehensive immigration reform, President Obama wouldn't even have to have issued an executive order. So I think the low approval rating that Congress has in general is an example of the fact that that institution is in disarray itself.
You know, Tim, it's interesting that President Obama used the executive orders because he couldn't get Congress to move, and President Trump seems to be using executive orders because he can't get Congress to move, but in a different way to repeal those things. What do you think about what Bobby said?
Well, I think
Congressman Scott.
I think that
he's a friend of mine. I'm sorry, Congressman Scott.
I think that President Trump often uses distracting techniques. I think there are a lot of reasons for that. One is I think he doesn't really understand how to work in a democracy. And as a consequence, I think he's thinking about America as his business, and he can't figure out why he can't just say, I think it should be this way, and have everybody jump and do it. And I think because of that, he's using distraction in some ways to mask his incompetence. And also, I'm not sure he's able to remain focused on anything for more than a tweet, the length of a tweet. So, yeah, I think Bobby Scott's right, but I think the implications of what Trump does are even more far-reaching than the issues at hand.
That he brought up. Bill, I know that you probably have a different perspective.
Oh, actually, I agree with what Will said. My good friend Will, he made excellent comments this morning, and I appreciate that. I was a Trump delegate, and the reason I was probably one of 2,500 think 17 of us were African American or black or whatever, is because we want change. We want America to look inward. We've been looking outward. And all my distinguished colleagues here today failed to mention that just yesterday, Mr. Trump did reconcile with Democrats and took care of a matter that we need to take care of with extreme urgency. There's a huge, huge storm out in the seas. Houston was pretty much destroyed, and he wanted those folks to get money. He said, politics be darned. He got together with the Democratic leadership and told the Republicans to go to the devil. Donald Trump is not a Republican. Never was, never has been, and never will be. He's independent. America is a business. And I see this health summit that the good folks over there at Fort Norfolk at the hospital over there, my good friends, are having. Mm-hmm. We have people that can't afford health care, and my colleague here is absolutely correct. We need to look at that. We have people that are dying of cancers and diabetes, and we have our children not being able to educate. But still, we're going to look outward to help other people. I'm all good with that. I have no problems with that. But I cry when I see people to die because they don't have lack of health care, and then we go out and try to fund strangers. That's fine. You know, this, whatever, the D.C., all these
DACA
and
yeah,
whatever.
We'll talk about that in just a
I know
moment.
we are. But my point is American, my children, your children, the kids who can't eat in the lunchrooms, the good work that you're doing at the Norfolk Redevelopment Housing Authority. I think we're broke. America is a business, sir, and we're broke. We have, what, $5 billion, trillion deficit? We got to take care of America first. And I'm all good with what Mr. Trump is doing. No, he's not the traditional politician. He did get something done with regard to helping the people who are stranded and flooded out, hundreds of thousands of people. Long story short, I'm good with what he is. And the Honorable Congressman Bobby Scott is a good friend of mine. But I think our priorities are all wrong. We got to take care of ourselves. I'm tired of seeing Americans that are hungry, don't have jobs, don't have education, and we just keep doing the same thing with the same people and getting bad results.
Roger.
I'm very happy that there's going to be legislation that's going to help the victims of Harvey and the like. But let's be clear on this. In the abstract, you have folks that have been demonizing anybody who says the words climate change, sea level rise, and, this is the administration that pushed to get out of the Paris Climate Accords. We're seeing some of the effects of that right now. And now, he's going to help the people. Well,
are you a scientist?
But I can read the scientists' reports, and I can
in the Washington Post and the Times and the Pilot.
And I can see what they're coming up with. And I don't say, well, just because this is going to cost a lot of money to try to fix, or it's going to hurt the oil and gas industry, I'm going to deny that some of these things exist. And so, yeah, I'm glad he's helping out the people, but why are you getting rid of some of these things that other countries have been involved in and saying, we've got to take a look at this. Maybe we need to get away from the coast. Maybe we should stop helping to build up on the coast in our policies.
Well, Bill, you really are saying that there is no such thing as climate change?
Oh, I think there's climate change. I think it takes millions of years to develop, and there's scientists on both sides that affect this particular matter. I don't believe anything that these New York Times and all these other newspapers are writing. I believe in what's science. And we can have that another discussion. But right now, I think if there is climate change, the biggest polluters by far are the 1.4 billion Chinese and Indians that are in the country of India that are producing, manufacturing all of the world's supplies and goods in coal facilities, and they're the polluters. I mean, and if we're going to fix the problem, then we need to get the Chinese, and we need to get the nation of India.
But isn't that what the Paris Accord was about, was trying to bring everyone together?
We were paying for it. Let them stop doing what they're doing. I don't take any money or no meetings to do that. Just force them to do what business that they got to do and not hurt America, not hurt American jobs. Drill, get gas, get energy, become self-sufficient so we can get out all these wars and take care of our children.
Tim, what do you want to say? Hang on, Will, I'm coming.
I was going to say, but we have to remember that American corporate interests are represented or expressed through Chinese labor and Indian labor. It's not like they're independent of our interests. That's why we can get all these cheap goods, because we're outsourcing the labor. So it's not that we're still not somewhat culpable in terms of what's happening in China and in India and other places for that matter, because we're our giant I mean, just take Nike for example. They're outsourcing stuff all over the world because then they can come back here cheaper, right?
Yeah.
So we're implicated even in other people's.
Do you own Nike?
Production.
Do you own Nike shoes?
I do not.
Okay, then good for you. Then you're a man of your word. Then.
What do you have to say, Will? And then we're going to go into our next topic. Will,
I was going to say that folks like Bill, I mean, look at the talking points and what have you to believe that America is hurting and in such bad disarray. America could get its financial house in order by getting out of these wars and spending so much money on the military-industrial complex and use that funds to really take care of our veterans and really give them the type of services that's needed. I mean, we've been in a war in our history. Almost every year of America's history, we've been in war. And this last war, we've been in war for 16 years, the longest war we've ever been in. And, we got servicemen and women coming home and not being able to get the type of help and the type of services that they need. So there's a lot of profit that is being made as a result of these wars. And you want to balance a budget. That's a key place that you look. And the other point I want to make, I think we shouldn't underestimate Donald Trump at this point. I mean, a lot of people have forgotten that he actually ran for president before. He ran for president back in 2000 as part of the Reform Party. So Bill is absolutely right. He's never been a Republican and probably never will be. And I think we do ourselves a disservice by continuing to, underestimate him and characterize him in these ways that, we're not taking him seriously. And by now, we should be taking him seriously because what I'm concerned about with the distractions is as we're chasing fire engines like people in Roger's profession are inclined to do, chase all the low-hanging fruit. What are the real
and that you used to be
I was going to say, when did he stop being a journalist?
Yeah,
When did you stop being a journalist?
I love it when you're always throwing shade at journalists for the profession that you
give the man a break. He has
involved.
Will has involved, and I'm very proud of him to have the courage to involve and not keep doing things the same way.
Hey, I just
man.
say that, Roger. You know the deal because I know what goes on in the newsroom.
Absolutely.
You still have the power of your pen to write about the real stuff that's going on, but you got a column to write, so you chase the low-hanging fruit. That's what you all tend to do.
Tell him the truth, brother. You're right on, Will. I love
what?
Will.
Let's talk to Brian in Chesapeake. Hi, Brian. You're on the air.
Hi, Barbara. I guess try and sum up 3 quick points and then take an answer off the air. First,
okay.
I think President Obama reached out to the outside because he wasn't getting any help from the inside. He fought a brilliant battle for 8 years and actually got a lot of things done with Congress that just didn't want to give him anything because they didn't want him to look good in doing anything. And as far as the, I guess I'll end with the climate thing. We have to take the lead. The Earth is a spaceship. The Earth is hurtling through the space with a very thin atmosphere. We only have one spaceship. We all live on it, and we can't wait for the Chinese to do something. We have to bring people together, and we can't wait for somebody else to do things because that's not going to help us in the end. We're screwing our kids, and their kids.
Okay, Brian. Brian, thanks so much for the call. I appreciate it. Anybody want to react? And then we're going on to our next topic. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation.
Well,
so,
I did want to just point out, we should try to show some leadership, especially since we're the innovators, especially because we have the resources to do some of those things. And that was some of the disappointment with the current administration backing off some of the climate accords. If you want to show leadership, this is a problem. Please don't deny science. Please, it's like saying, well, we don't like the forecasts that are coming about these hurricanes. Well, I think you should listen to them because you want to save people's lives. So,
and they are going to happen, definitely. This week, President Trump eliminated the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, program, phasing it out in the next 6 months, leaving about 800,000 young adults brought to the U.S. illegally as children in limbo. They could be deported at any time and sent back to countries that are unfamiliar to them. DACA allows them to remain in the U.S. without fear of immediate removal from this country and allows them to go to school and work legally. So there are two questions I have for you guys. One, your thoughts on this decision, and two, when a minority group is affected as this, what does it portend for African Americans? Will, let me start with you.
Well, I think the decision was a bad idea, and I think it was mainly motivated by something Roger alluded to earlier, that Trump has a commitment, a clear commitment, to erase everything that President Obama did. And DACA is one of those things. So it seems to me like he was going down the list. The potential good thing that could come out of it is that it actually forces Congress to do what it should have done, which is pass comprehensive immigration reform that would also include a path to citizenship, or a DACA, a more secured DACA type of policy. And hopefully that's what comes out of it. As it pertains to African Americans in this particular group, I'm not really seeing where there's a particular threat, because we're talking about children. Unfortunately, we're talking about children who are not initially citizens. And in fact, we have to be honest about this, that some of this is happening because of a decision that their own parents made. Even though it was a life and death decision, they were trying to do what is best for their children, for their family. Any of us who are parents would do such a thing. But it still comes back to these children who are now young adults who are not citizens. And there's a difference between your citizens of your country being disrespected or being disenfranchised, which is what happened to African Americans, which is what happened, to Native Americans, even more brutal things that they've experienced, than someone who is not a citizen and is being treated unfairly because of something that they had little or nothing to do with. Well, okay. And Congress can resolve this and should.
Okay, Tim.
But I also think that there are implications for black people in this country, because I do think that undergirding a lot of the things that President Trump is doing is a racist sensibility. I mean, he has trouble disguising it, particularly if you think about his comments after Charlottesville, for example. But that's not the only thing. If we think about what he does with the Muslim ban and something, I don't think President Trump will do anything in particular to help or defend people of color in general. But more specifically about DACA, I think what makes it especially unethical and terrifying to me is that, what are you going to do with these 800,000 people? You can't just send but they've only lived in America. Most of them, they only know America. You're going to send them somewhere they don't speak the language. You're going to send them somewhere where they have no family, no relatives. This is the thing. What are you going to do with them? And also, in many respects, they're not all children anymore. Mm-mm. A lot of them are adults who've started businesses, who are professionals. They may be police officers, firemen, firefighters, whatever. They're largely integrated into the American economy. I just think it's kind of crazy.
And largely successful, too.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I just think you can't kick people.
Bill, I see you shaking your head. No.
Number one, during the last presidential election, Donald Trump said he was going to erase every last of these things that Barack Obama did, President Obama did. All these presidential edicts, he said he was going to get rid of all of them, so he's doing what he said he was going to do. Number two, the issues that they're not constitutional. The president don't do this. Congress should do this, should have done this, and they should have done it a long time ago and got it correct. I hear what you're saying, but okay. Here, I'm really simple with this.
Okay.
I love all children. And I want everybody to prosper and be healthy. But to my good friend, more to you, if you want to help the folks, get your checkbook out and write a check and take care of them. It's not my It's not my unchosen responsibility to do that. I care about the kids that are living over here in Lambert's Point or in Park Place or downtown Norfolk in the project in the areas that don't have these resources. I'm looking at our people. And let me just finish this, Barbara.
Okay.
The African American people are a great people. We built this country on our back, sweat, tears, and blood. We had the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments that were created to protect the free slave. Now that's all been manipulated, and we're helping everybody. We can't afford to help everybody. The folks that are living here, God bless them. I love them. They're children of God, but they are here illegal. It is unconstitutional in terms of why they are here. Now, I agree with Mr. Trump. What he did, he said, okay, as all of us have said, they're here, they're grown, they're contributing. So he did what he did. I think that was a good thing. But now what we have to do is answer a simple question, my friend. How many do we want? I mean, are we going to take on 800,000, 800 million? I mean, just because we don't have any resources to take care of that. I love my children. I love your children. I want to take care of Americans, Virginians, Norfolkians, Hamptonians first. And then when we have other resources, or my friend, take your checkbook out and pay for this, then I have no question about this. This is simple.
Okay, hold on one second. And Roger, I'm coming to you. But if you're just joining us, we're discussing current events pertinent particularly to the African-American community. Our panelists are Roger Chesley with the Virginian-Pilot, ODU professor, author, and poet Tim Seibles, community activist Bill Thomas, and journalist, author, and talk show host Wil LaVeist. Roger.
This was nothing but a sop to the president's base. So much disinformation has come out through this. We're talking about people who have been here for years. We're talking about a very finite group of people, the people who are DACA, but these are people who had to fit under a very specific criteria. You couldn't come here now and become part of that group. He didn't even have the guts to get up and announce this policy change himself. He sent out one of his boys, Attorney General Sessions, to do it for him.
Okay, white boy.
We're talking about something that his predecessor went ahead.
That doesn't matter.
You call a white man a boy? I mean, you should have called a black man a boy. Y'all be marching in the streets tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. He went out and did this because his predecessor tried to get something meaningful through Congress that one of the chambers wouldn't even allow a vote on some of this legislation to come to the floor. Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois has tried to get meaningful legislation through for 16 years. So when it's a fiction that there's going to be anything that's going to happen in Congress in 6 months to make a change. Look, these are people who have contributed to our country. Some are in the military, and now you're going to say you're going to be kicked out? What type of message does that send to this group of people?
Get in line.
Do
it the right way.
We're talking
we
about
have rules.
we're
we
talking
have laws.
about
we have
a
border,
portion.
language,
Let
and
me
country.
Hold on,
finish.
but let him finish.
We're talking about a portion of 11 million people that the president said, let's focus on these folks and let's keep, allow them to come out of the shadows. And it's just spiteful, it's hateful, and it sends a bad message about our country.
But Bill, I mean, to Roger's point, and to what Tim said also, they are people who are contributing. They're not taking away jobs. I mean, they're paying taxes. They're productive parts of the community. If you are in the program, there's, as Roger said, there are very strict rules. So why do you think...
Are they in America legally?
No.
Did they go through the process?
And they haven't been for years. So what do we do? Do we try to do something that's sensible, or do we demagogue it and spend billions of dollars to remove them from our nation?
Your money.
Yeah, do we spend billions to remove them from our country?
Will, what do you have to say, Will?
Yeah, I was going to say that to Roger's point, the point that I made at the very beginning, that this is really about erasing everything that Obama has done, going down the list, and it's all of these other arguments about, of course, like I said that they weren't brought in as citizens, but absolutely in every way they contributed to the country, and this is the only country that they know. Everybody in their right mind knows that the fair thing to do is to find the comprehensive way that works, that will allow them to continue to contribute as citizens to the only country that they know. Everybody knows that. Nobody in their right mind would argue against that. All this other stuff is just semantics. But this is all about politics, like what was said, a nod to the base, going down the list of removing everything that President Obama did. And hopefully what will come out of it is they'll force Congress to really do its job which was it should have passed comprehensive reform. And by the way, this is also affecting whites. I was listening to an NPR station. We were talking about a person from Germany who came in much of the same way, has a family, married, productive job, so forth, and the immigration lawyers are saying, do not leave this country and try to re-enter, because you will never be able to get back in and be with your family. So one of the things there is people begin to see and stop falling for the issue of whether it's about race and racism and all of this, and people begin to see it for really what it is just a failure of Congress and politicians to do what they should do.
Okay, let me let Roger speak, and then we're going to the phones.
Real quick, but if the face of the people were generally connotated as being European, this would not be the case. It's because the people who are brown, who are people who are from Central and South America, because that is generally considered the face of illegal immigration in this nation. That's why it's playing out the way it is.
So, if the face of
and
these people,
that's why that face is out there, so we could be distracted by that, and not see it for really what it really is.
Okay, Bill.
If the face of these people were Haitians, like they were maybe 10, 15 years ago when they were trying to get to America after a devastating weather thing there, there'd be a war.
They weren't allowed in the same way.
Their war. They weren't. That's what I'm saying.
Let's talk to Joe in Virginia Beach. Hi, Joe. You're on the air.
I don't know how to follow the thing about a war with Haiti, but anyway.
I didn't say a war with Haiti. I said white folks would be fighting a war in America for letting black people come here.
Go ahead, Joe. What's your question or comment?
Here's my whole thing is I see this as an economic thing, and as far as the African American community goes, I think it's better for the African American community to have better regulation on immigration, because what's happened, I've been in the building industry for 25 years, and what has happened is we've been saturated, where 25 years ago we would find young men, middle-aged men from the hood, and they'd come and work on our construction crews. But
when you say from the hood, I'm assuming you mean African Americans.
You mean black people?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Black people.
And the thing is that now it's not happening, because what's happened since probably the late 90s is a rush of immigration.
Amen.
And unfortunately, these people brought in their kids, and their kids are going to do real well, because statistics show that. I mean, there's empirical data showing that children of immigrants, I'm a child of an immigrant, I'm a grandchild of an immigrant. So, and yeah, we do better than, but it does take time.
Okay. All right, Joe, we'll respond to your comment. I also want to see if we can get Sarah from Newport News on the line. Hi, Sarah, you're on the air.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Uh-huh.
So my main point is that Trump gave red meat to his base by discontinuing DACA, and that it's injustice. And the African American population has always known what white America is only just beginning to figure out, and actually that's white liberal America, because obviously the Trumpites don't agree with this. But there's a huge fault line of racism and white supremacy that runs through this country. And justice for these DACA kids, these dreamers, translates into justice for African Americans. It translates into justice for other people.
Hold on, let her finish. Explain that a little bit, Sarah. What do you mean by it translates?
So, for one thing, it's economic justice, right? Because if these kids are legal, they can finish going to school, they can continue with their entrepreneurial dreams, or, they are contributing to our society. They're not costing us money. 95% of these DACA kids are either in college full-time or have jobs. And so if we do right by them, because it's the right thing to do, and it's a false narrative that it has a negative economic impact on us, then there is more chance that we are going to do right by African Americans, by blacks, in fixing some of the systemic racism and stopping some of this white supremacy from getting played out in our policies.
Okay. Let the panel respond to that. Tim, what do you think? Do you think
Well,
that that's true?
Well, what I think is that, in addition to a number of other things, I don't want to rant and rave like a madman, but there seems to be a poorly disguised gesture toward divide and conquer. It's like if Latinos and black people are pitted against each other because in theory they're taking our jobs, it does the work of white supremacy on a lot of other levels. And this is the thing. Like, I understand, I think to some extent, Bill's point, but I do think, given the 800,000 people we're talking about who have lives in America more or less exclusively here, I think they have to be protected. Now, people coming in newly, surely we need some kind of immigration reform. I don't have any doubt about that. But I do think that this administration is really much more dangerous. I mean, certainly I don't think Trump is a particularly competent president, but I also think he represents a really dangerous interest and a really 1950s and earlier perspective about race. And I think this is just one more sign of it.
Roger, you want to have the last word on this, and then we're going to move on to the next topic.
No, I will just, I'll say quickly, there's this, the gentleman who was on the phone and talked about, this is hurting people in the hood from getting jobs. Well, why are these employers hiring people that they know aren't citizens unless they are exacerbating the problem themselves? I mean, they're making a financial decision, not a moral one, about who we think we can hire for cheaper to get the same job done. And that's what it's...
One quick comment regarding the issue of African Americans and pitting us against Hispanics and stuff. I'm totally against H-1B workers. Totally. These high-tech people, I know we need to get some in. I think we should train our own kids. I think we ought to limit that program maybe to 5,000 H-1B workers. I'm sick and tired of seeing all the technology workers in California, in the groups, in the entrepreneurial centers in America, across America, that are going over to Russia and all these other places, bringing white folks here to do jobs that black and people of color and Americans should be taught well in school to do, including our children.
Okay, and with that, I'm going to move on to our next topic.
Thank you, Barbara.
Bill, actually, this one is for you. So Hampton University is considering suing the health insurance industry for refusing to cover proton therapy treatment for cancer. Give us the backstory.
Well, actually, it's and I'm going to talk to Roger about that afterwards, but actually, that's kind of an overall view. The issue is, and we were able to pass in the General Assembly, thanks to David Yancey and Newport News and others, Ken Alexander, who used to be a senator, was on the bill until he got become mayor here. But simply put, what they are doing now, they're holding proton therapy to a higher standard than regular radiation. That's simple. That's the question. The bill is very, very simple. The legislative intent is that you cannot hold proton therapy to a higher standard than regular radiation. Pure and simple. If a doctor tells a patient that they need to get radiation, then the doctor and the patient should decide, not the insurance companies and doggone not the government. So it just be that. And there's no mandate. We're not saying that you have to do this or do this. Now, the quick reason why we are doing this is because they are really trying to destroy innovation in the medical field for a whole bunch of reasons. We can talk about that later. But the other issue, I think, is, and you look at race and you look at ethnicities, the city of Portsmouth has the highest death rate of cancer victims in the entire Commonwealth. The city of Hampton has the second highest incident of cancer rate, deaths. Prostate cancer in Richmond, Virginia, and Petersburg are second in the nation in terms of people, black folks. The thing that I love about Dr. Harvey's dream and mission here is the fact that over 30% of our patients are African American. We have raised about $3 million in indigent funds to help people who can't get it. So our issue is that the insurance company shouldn't do it. And Roger, you should be concerned because your company, I'm going to talk to you about that as well, is self-insured. And it's just against all people. All people are dying because of this needlessly. We don't want a preference on this. We don't want anything to do with this.
You just want to equal.
We just want an equal basis. That's why it passed 40-0 in the Senate with leadership from Senator Frank Wagner. And thank you, Frank, for standing with us on that. And I think it was like 97-2 or something in the House. So that's why we're doing that. And it's great.
Roger?
I had the privilege of touring the center before it opened back in 2009. And at that time, I wrote an editorial about the fact that it was going to be the 7th proton therapy center in the country and the only one in the state. Now, to suggest, after all these years, that this is still an experimental treatment is just nonsense. I have a friend who is struggling with a type of cancer disease who would have been served by this, but insurance won't cover him. This is an outrage. And I'm talking about this is an outrage for anybody who could use the services there and are being denied because, let's face it, I think a lot of the insurance companies are doing this because they know they'd have to kick in a lot of money. But this is much less injurious to the people who would go through the treatment. It would be much easier in terms of the side effects and in terms of the treatment to be able to use that. And to have this pushback is almost criminal.
It is
almost criminal. The fact that it has been around, the Institute opened in 2010, but we know that other institutes like this have been around in the country since then, and there's still questions about the efficacy of this. That's nonsense. And I'm glad that there's been a lot more to bear about what's going on regarding coverage, insurance coverage for patients who need it.
Who need this, Tim?
Oh, well, I would just know.
That's how
really,
you're nodding your head.
I agree 100%. If people need a particular kind of radiation therapy, of course it should be covered, no matter what style of radiation it is, of course. But the question is, again, one of money.
Just out of my curiosity, is it more expensive? I mean, the treatment itself, is it more because of time or because of the equipment? Or I don't know. I don't know.
I was just curious. Come on and do this. Any innovation is expensive at the very beginning.
Right.
Our center cost $225 million. And I hate to say today you can get one for $125 million. And Hampton University and University of Virginia is working on research that, in fact, somehow some smart person from Hampton and UVA of color, and they have discovered a drug that you can take. It catches the cancer somehow. I'm not scientifically aware of that, but it increases the proton therapy. So in theory, if we can do that, we can get it. But our problem is it's going to lower the price. So the price is going to come down. But here is the biggest problem that it saved. It's harming healthy tissues and healthy organs. We had a kid who had brain cancer in the Plains, Virginia, very, very wealthy community in Northern Virginia, and his father worked for Boeing International. Boeing company, aircraft carrier company, airline carrier builders. And what he did, they were going to do standard radiation on his brain, which means he would lose half of it. He would lose half cognizance. And his mother called me and our proton therapy team, and she read about me fighting in the paper for the law getting passed. And she kept trying to get me to tell her that we could help save her son. Actually, you only have a window of time where you can do this, so you can't play around with this forever because the cancer metastasized, you're gone. So I got her on the phone, and we got our team around. We said, can we get Daniel down to here to where we can get him fixed and get him going and get him straight? It was just not enough time. He'd had to do something going before that. The woman, have you ever heard anybody's heart break?
Wow.
The woman, because I can't commit to something that I know we can't do, and I just can't tag her along and say, yeah, everything's going to be fine. Yeah. I ended up telling her, ma'am, and Daniel was on the phone.
Wow.
I said, I would sell my house. It doesn't matter. And he said, Mr. Thomas, you are exactly right. I think the woman passed out with a broken heart. But we heard her. And then I said, Mr. Whatever his name was, and I said, that's all I can do. And I hung up. He doesn't work. My whole team over there started crying and said, Bill, you call that woman back up, and you tell her that you're going to find a way to help Daniel. And the leadership that we have, and I guess, again, I mentioned Dr. Harvey again because he's so visionary with this stuff, he gives us the power to do things to help people, to stamp out prejudice, race, all that kind of stuff when it raises ugly head. I wrote the governor a stinging letter, and the Governor McAuliffe, worked with us to his credit, and his team worked with us, and Pat, it's just really good. Paul Reagan, the chief of staff, they all work with us to force this issue. So we quickly came to the conclusion that Anthem was not obeying Virginia law. So the Attorney General, who never got back to us, but I think he helped us in the end, we told him to enforce the law. Simple. Long story short.
Did Daniel get help?
Yeah. Simple story, the people from the Department of Insurance in Virginia called the company in Anthem, which was in Illinois, and we threatened them, and we threatened them again, and they called up and told me, and then one other quick story, we did the press conference, and then the same thing kind of happened. We just said it, so we saved 2 lives, not even come to our Proton Center. We said we didn't want them to do that because that would delay the timing of them getting help. They went other places, MD Anderson and another Proton Center. So it's good work. Thanks.
Okay.
Barbara, I had a quick question.
Uh-huh.
Is it covered by Medicare?
Yes.
It
yes,
is covered by Medicare.
It's FDA,
Yes, it is.
it's FDA approved,
Yeah,
and it's covered by Medicare.
And that sounds to me like a good argument for Medicare for all.
Oh, I agree. I'm almost. You're right on.
And you talked about the need that the health care should be handled by the free market system.
That is correct.
This is a prime example of why Medicare for all is what should be the standard in this country.
I'm going to shock everybody, but I would listen to a single payer.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whoa.
and because the people the poor people are just getting wiped out.
Of course.
They're getting poor.
As always.
And let's be clear. This is a life-saving technology that under President Harvey's guidance and leadership brought this to the area and said, this is something that's going to save a lot of people. And because we have it here in the Mid-Atlantic region, it's going to make it more accessible to people who live around the area. And it is just dollars and cents that some of the insurance companies are fighting to do this. And that's terrible. This is a technology that allows people to feel better afterwards instead of having all this tissue be damaged. It's a technology that pinpoints the treatment of the cancer more precisely. And for there to be so much pushback, they all need to be called out. And good
Just
for
one
you,
quick
Bill.
Point. One quick point. We're going to host a town hall meeting on health care in 2 weeks in a church in Hampton, so we can get the folks to understand this. It's not a Hampton problem. It's Hampton University. My other point, where it is absolutely shameful that our elected officials, Hampton University created this magic in the Commonwealth of Virginia. They told them
it's magic, meaning the proton therapy.
The proton therapy, where you can go and get yourself healed if it's qualified and not have any injurious cell side effects. Women with breast cancer, if it's qualifiable, you're not going to have anything. But here's the shame about it all. We were told there was no medical efficacy for proton therapy. And we were told it didn't work. You brothers down at HBCUs, how the devil did y'all beat UVA and VCU and all those schools in getting it? So we were the fourth, ended up being the eighth in the country to do it. Before the Mayo Clinic, before Johns Hopkins, our top 10 cancer centers are now getting it. So that was 7 years ago when Roger wrote his article. Now Inova wants to build one in Northern Virginia, so the rich white folks in Northern Virginia can get access to it. And they don't need it. Georgetown has one, Johns Hopkins has one, and the University of Maryland has one within 40 miles, and Johns Hopkins within 7 and 8 miles. Do you know what they have done? The General Assembly did? They gave Inova $110 million to do cancer research, and now proton therapy is magic. It's the best thing working. Shame on the elected officials in the General Assembly, the white ones and the black ones, that didn't support us to bring these kind of jobs. We created a whole economy for this. We created a whole curriculum. And you know who my interns are who are getting these 80 and 90 and 110, 15,000 jobs are? They're African Americans, and we're training them. So I'm going to leave it like that. You have to vote the people who support you. It is just a doggone change. Last word, my mama died of respiratory cancer. My dad died of prostate cancer. My sister had breast cancer. Significant other had massive surgery that disfigured her and just broke her heart. It took years for her to deal with all of that stuff. I get it. And if we can do anything to save one life, which we have, just in last week we saved 2, and we need your support, and that's all I got to say.
Okay, Bill, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Well, we only have 3 minutes left in the show, so rather than start the conversation about the monuments, which I know will just make you guys go crazy, I'm going to move on real quickly to speaking of HBCUs. So the Trump administration is having this conference.
Oh, I thought
for
you
the
were going to talk about Howard University's victory over UNLV.
Great. Okay. Man. I gotta give you on that one, man. That was a good one. Right on.
But speaking of HBCUs and accomplishments, right? But the Trump administration is holding a conference for historically black colleges and universities. Now they've decided to roll it back in terms of minimizing the scope of the conference. A lot of people said that they would not attend based on President Trump's comments from Charlottesville. Do you think it will go on? Is it necessary? Bill, you're in the middle of it. Will, you work at an HBCU. I know, Tim, you're at a majority school, but
yes, but both my parents went to HBCU.
There you go. So I mean, what are we going to? Do you think the Trump administration is going to stick to the things that they said they were going to do for historically black colleges?
For the past 8 years, I don't even go to the conference because nothing is ever accomplished. Nothing is ever accomplished. What's going to be accomplished next week is that we have legislation in Hampton and Howard and other HBCU that have research credentials to tweak the law, and I'm going to give it to Roger, and Trump is supporting that thus far. If he changes
tweak the law to do what?
What it's going to do is DOD has a mandate to provide services to HBCUs to help them do the research and et cetera, and et cetera, and et cetera. It's on the books already. It's just not being enforced. So they have to pass no new laws. All he needs to do is, I'm going to work with Congressman Scott and Senator Warner and Kane, and all he has to do is enforce it. If he enforces it, that will, in all likelihood, increase the likelihood of the HBCUs that are prepared to get an increase in DOD research dollars up to 15%. That's what I'm working on, not the dances, not the music, not the speeches, but the effect that's going to change the lives and culture and opportunity for people that look like us.
And with that, sir, you had the last word. Thank you guys so very much for joining us again. I appreciate it. Roger Chesley, Bill Thomas, Tim Seibles, and on the phone, Wil LaVeist. Hopefully we'll see you in person real soon, Will. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And thanks so much to our Roundtable Pundits for sharing such wisdom today. The podcast for today's show or any other Another View program is available on our website, and that website is anotherviewradio.org, or you can go to iTunes or any place else that you go for your podcast listening pleasure. Also, we invite you to go to anotherviewradio.org and sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week reminder of upcoming shows, and we're on Facebook, and we're also on Twitter. Next time on Another View, private detective to the stars, Monica Morton. She shares with us the 6 signs of infidelity. Should be an interesting conversation. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer, and Jordan Yowell answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Thank you so very much for listening to Another View.